Alright, so if you've watched all these guitar lesson videos up to this point, you should have a pretty good understanding of the basic constructs and music theories and relating it to the guitar fairly well. You've got a pretty good bag of abstract theory concepts to help you move forward and develop yourself. You've got a pretty good understanding of developing yourself, your style, and your sound, and what you really need to focus on to move forward. And so at this point, with what we've talked about so far, we should address advanced theory. So very simply, so without a lot of clinical and theoretical jargon, because advanced theory can be a huge stumbling block to all levels. If you are not a theoretician and you're going to sit around trying to understand a theoretician and what he's trying to teach you without understanding all the foundations of what he's working with, that it may not be as good for you as you might think. You'd be better off studying those basic building blocks and working forward so that you don't get wrapped up in advanced theory concepts that you're just not ready to mess with, or that it would be much better for you to really go back and focus more on the basics before you start delving into advanced theory. Advanced theory is a very basic concept, and to elaborate on advanced theory and to make it very simple so that it doesn't frighten you or scare you or make you go, oh no, is that advanced theory has two sides to it. Advanced theory is taking the fundamental building blocks and using them in different ways. Does that make sense? Using them in different ways, adding to them, connecting them, combining them, besides just using them in different ways, modifying them a little bit. And that's a very simple concept. So you want to keep that concept that simple in your head, because almost all other advanced theory that people think about and worry about is abstract theory. So we've talked a little bit about some abstract theory concepts, and the concept of what abstract theory will mean to you is that you get two people that are arguing about abstract theory concepts that may be consonant or dissonant in one specific genre or another, that there's no right or wrong answer there. It's more about how the individual interprets it and if it sounds consonant and good to them. And that's, if you look around at all the different types of genres, styles, different types of historic music that has happened throughout history and forms of music, that there was a whole lot of abstract theory concepts that were attempted and utilized and performed and concocted to form all that musical tapestry and montage that you see when you look into music and the broad horizon and tapestry that it is of different styles and genres and types that are happening in different ways that they've utilized them and different ways they've formed them into forms of music. So that's a very simple concept to get in your head. Don't make it any more difficult than that. Anytime you're dealing with advanced theory, you're going to run into a couple different things. The first thing you'll run into advanced theory is you will run into theoretical jargon, clinical jargon. Now, if you're not an advanced theoretician, you may not understand it. And so you really want to be real careful to have whoever you're getting it from be able to break it down into basic building blocks for you so that you can relate it to those basic building blocks. And to be able to really understand when you're dealing with an abstract theory concept that is very applicable to jazz, that is not applicable to heavy metal. That abstract theory concept that they use in some type of chordal progression or some type of melody playing or improvisation is not very applicable to heavy metal. It's not going to sound good. It's an abstract theory concept that works really good with the abstract theory concepts that have been formulated, put together to form the form of music that is jazz, or a certain type of jazz, that is not going to work really well in the form of heavy metal or some certain type of heavy metal. There's all kinds of different heavy metal also, and can be a whole issue in itself with any type of genre. So you have to really understand that's what you're looking at when you're thinking about advanced theory or advanced abstract theory, and to understand the difference between those. Theory, advanced theory is advanced theory built upon from the basic theory blocks we've talked about. And anytime it starts going away from that and it gets way too abstract and form oriented or genre oriented, it becomes more of an abstract theory concept. Just like modulations are an abstract theory concept. It really is. It's a theoretical construct that will work in most types of music, but isn't used in a lot of music. So you don't hear it a lot, and very rarely sometimes, and it is. It can be very debatable when it's theory, advanced theory, or advanced abstract theory. Does that make sense? And you can argue that point. It becomes advanced theory in the clinical sense when the collegiate view of it is that it is a concrete advanced theory that is taught in a collegiate atmosphere, in a college atmosphere for a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, or something like that. And then it's accepted as advanced theory in the worldview in Western music. Up until that point, which can get very complicated again, depending who you're talking to. So let's get this all back to just the basic concepts that we're talking about. So that you can, anytime you hear advanced theory, that you've got a pretty good understanding of what they're talking about. I mean, without even them telling you anything about the advanced theory concept that they're trying to explain, that you know what's happening there. They've taken those basic building blocks and they've built upon them. They've connected them. They've tried to modify them to form some advanced theory. And a lot of times it may be very genre oriented. And when they're talking about advanced abstract theory, you may not get that term a lot because they try to relate it to advanced theory when it really isn't. It's an abstract theoretical construct that is normally a tool or something that's used in some specific type of form of music or some specific type of genre. So that now that when you hear those concepts spoken, you've got a pretty good understanding what they're talking about. And when you get into advanced theoretical concepts and the jargon, the clinical jargon, that you basically aren't going to really learn that without studying advanced theory. And I really advise you that a lot of guitarists that I've seen will have a whole lot, they're not really theoretical. They understand the basics and then they just take off flying. And then you'll have ones that are somewhere in the middle. They got 1 foot in the theory and 1 foot basically, and they just take off with the basics. And then you have the other category who are theoreticians that are at some level of being a theoretician and looking at that very simply as a bachelor or a master's degree in music, and that's very simple, arena that you're dealing with. And you're dealing with shades of that anywhere and everywhere in between. So you really have to understand what's applicable to what you're doing rather than how applicable advanced theory is to your advanced abstract theory. Because you'll be utilizing both of them almost assuredly at some point while you're playing. But understanding what you're dealing with in the most fundamental way to understand. A really good example of abstract theory is the video that I showed you on using one of the tones of the chord that you happen to be on to use it as a leading tone moving to the next chord. That's an abstract theory concept that could be seen as theory, I guess, but it's an abstract theory concept that is probably utilized more times than not, but it's not like written. Does that make sense? A lot of times. And that concept is very useful tool. And then the whole abstract theory concept that is theory also and abstract theory combination is resolving from where you are starting from into whatever you're doing and resolving back out of it somewhere that it sounds consonant, in that whole progression there that it has consonants. But it's an abstract theory concept that has been tried to be related for thousands of years as a theory. and trying to concoct theory to explain that, and a lot of words to explain that, and a lot of arguments, over that. So don't get yourself so wrapped up in the abstract theory or the advanced theory. Once you understand the basics and you start getting into more advanced theory, that you're really going to want to understand, you're going to want to, at that point, more than likely, go find a very good guitar teacher and ask him about advanced theory, and sit down with him and say, I understand all this. I understand all these basic building blocks. I've done this studies on this and this. I've done all this practicing, working on myself, but I really want to understand more advanced theory. What is that? And, it's and applying it to what I think I'm trying to do at this moment. And you'll find that you'll get some very good answers, and find that a whole lot of it isn't that complicated. And you can very rapidly break it back down into the basic building blocks, and how it's been modified or added to or linked to other building blocks to form those advanced theory concepts. And then it's just a matter of mastering those words, so when you want to argue with someone else over advanced theory, that you can use big long words to relate it to the person. Does that make sense? Which can be difficult sometimes. I've found myself doing things on the guitar and trying to write it out on composition software. I'm like, there is no way to relate that. I mean, I've got Sibelius. There's no way to relate that type of articulation on the composition software, so I'm having to create some type of articulation mark and then make notes about it so what I'm doing, because it's an abstract theory concept. You can run into that a lot as the better you get. So keep that in mind. And so with that concept being related to you as simply as possible, so that it doesn't scare you, and so it doesn't make you not focus on what you should, being the basic constructs and understanding what advanced theory and advanced abstract theory basically is, so that you can really get it broke down to those simpler elements to understand it, make notes of it, and then apply it, elaborate on it, modify it, and make it into something new and cool that everybody's been doing for thousands of years. So I hope that kind of helps you understand advanced theory as far as when you're relating it to the guitar. And we are going to probably talk about some advanced theory. Advanced theory can touch upon all aspects of theory in music, and it can elaborate upon them and link them together and modify them in all kinds of different ways. But it's the basic concept of what it is that you need to understand in a very simplistic way, so that it doesn't scare you away when it could sometimes be something really cool to help you advance and to maybe even better music as a whole yourself, like they've been doing for thousands of years. Peace, hope, love. Hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you in the next video.